Right, so a follower sent me this question saying that it was brought up during an interview and asked for my input on how I would answer this. The question is, if you have a bad motor and then the motor spec 284T, 25 horsepower, 3-phase, 18 RPM, 460 volt motor on a conveyor and you need to replace it but you don't have the same motor in stock, what can you do? What other types of motors can you put in place? I guess they want to see your problem solving skills. So 284T is our motor frame size, which is this motor here. And we want to keep that frame size the same. That way we don't have to do a whole bunch of re-engineering to try to make something work. And since we don't have a 284T on the shelf, I would look to see if we have a 284TC on the shelf. So I would look to see if I have a 284 TC with the similar specs, 1800 RPM and 25 horsepower. And the only difference between a 284T and a 284 TC is if you look at this one, this is the TC, it has these mounting holes in the front of the face. If we go back to the 284T, if you look at the face of the motor, there's no mounting holes. And those mounting holes are just to mount into a gearbox, which then looks something like this. You have your motor mounted into a gearbox. And just because you have the mounting holes doesn't necessarily mean that you have to mount it. You can still use it just like a normal 284T would be. The 284T and 284TC, that calls out the motor frame size. So that tells me that the shafts are going to be the same diameter, the center line of the shafts are going to be at the exact same spot, the foot mounting are going to be at the same exact locations because they are of the same frame size. And if you happen to not have another 284TC motor or 284T motor that has the exact same specifications, you can always undersize it a bit or oversize it a bit. So let's say you have a 284T or 284TC motor and they happen to be 20 horsepower, 3-phase, 1800 RPM, 480, 460 volts, and a 284T 30 horsepower. I would go with the 30 horsepower first before I undersize it to the 20 horsepower. Undersizing it can cause the motor to work a lot harder for the application, and if I were to undersize it, I would make sure that I check the amp draw with the conveyor running under normal conditions to make sure that it is not running close to full load amps. Otherwise, it may not work. You might smoke out your motor. And remember to adjust your motor protection components accordingly. So if you have your overload set to a certain amount under the 25 horsepower condition, just make sure you change it accordingly. If you undersize or upsize your motor, if it runs on a VFD, just make sure you adjust that setting accordingly. And remember, when you undersize or oversize it for a temporary repair to keep things moving, make sure it doesn't become permanent. Always go back and put it back to how it's supposed to be. And I see why the interviewer asked this question, because this scenario happens all the time in the industry. You need to replace a part and it is not the same part, but you have to think outside the box and try to make things work. So fellow maintenance techs, what would you guys do in this situation? I'd like to know your guys' input. Let me know in the comments. Until next time, deuces.